again. Welcome to Inspired Voices with Sangwadzi Spiweka Mapfumo on this platform of mine where I invite amazing, ordinary people who are doing extraordinary work in communities. My guest today is Takura Nyamfukudza. Takura is a criminal defense litigator and co-founder of Chartier and Nyamfukudza law firm in Lansing, Michigan. Takura, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk to you because you've got an amazing story from the time I knew you from time when you were a little boy, right? Now you're a grown man, you're a businessman, and I actually have a small story that I remember from way back. I think you were 6 years old, and I had visited, and there you were walking around with your book. It wasn't like, I want to be a lawyer, but you were like doing a little American accent that I'm a businessman in America. And I remember that clearly. And fast forward, here we are. You are a businessman in America. You are, a lawyer in America. Very interesting job.
Yeah.
So tell me.
And before because you know that I didn't start talking until I was 4 or 5. So that was early on into my talk, and here I am now advocating on behalf of people. So yes,
I didn't want to speak about that, but I want you tell me about yourself, Takura, and talk to me about who you are, how it all started, and talk about that story you just mentioned that you didn't talk until you were 4 or 5 years old, and here you are, you're making a living out of talking.
Right.
Go ahead. Talk to me. Tell me.
So actually, your home is one of the few. I was brimming with energy. I was a rambunctious young man, right? That's a polite way to say it. And your home is one of the few places that my mother was comfortable bringing me. And so you played a pivotal role in raising me up and ensuring that I was confident and being myself, right? So born in Zimbabwe, came to the US when I was 16. And then in my second year of college, I enlisted in the US Army. And because my mother took out student loans, when I saw the Humvee with the big machine gun and the big screen with people jumping out of planes, and they said, you too can do this. I said, okay, sounds interesting. But the hook was when they said, and will help pay for your education. I signed up, and then I called my mother. I told her, guess what? I'm in the Army. She didn't have very much to say. She said, oh, and that's, we'll talk later. But again, the reason I didn't hesitate, was because I didn't want her to be the one taking on loans. Now, if you'd asked me when I started law school, so my sister's a dentist, so I knew it was not an option for me to stop anywhere short of postgraduate degrees, right? And once I started, if you told me that I was going to be a defense attorney, I would have said, you know what, this stuff is interesting, but I don't see myself doing that. Anyhow, I knew I was going to be a litigator because it would be tough for me to be a transactional attorney. And now the job of a defense attorney is the only one in the Bill of Rights, the 10 amendments. Even if you can't afford an attorney, if the government is looking to put you away or take your property, even if you can't afford it, you get me, right? A criminal defense attorney. We don't have a right to a doctor or anybody else, but I'm there in the Constitution of the United States. So it's work I'm incredibly proud of. I do it with, although she's my business partner, Mary Chartier, I'm still a fan of hers. She does fantastic things, and we've been fortunate to do great things. Our firm is not a big one, but we do great things. I think we've accomplished some incredible results.
That's fantastic. Well, I mean, for me, it's kind of difficult interviewing you or a conversation with you because we come a long way. Okay, we come a long way, like you said. my home was your mom felt comfortable because I mean you did amazing stuff. Let's just give it this name, kind of like crazy stuff, William. But talk a little bit about when you were born, when you were a child, and then you had your challenges with talking. I mean, you were like 4 years old and didn't say anything, didn't say unspew, didn't say anything.
Right.
And then, like I said, I mean, it's amazing that even with those challenges, whatever they were, and you end up making a living out of talking.
You know,
How is that?
I'll tell you this. Even in those days, I remember, I rewind to Glen Lawn and all these places where I was acting out and just being an unforgettable version of myself. If I had actually, I think if I'd been born here in the United States, I probably would have been very heavily medicated, probably
Yes.
institutionalized, frankly.
Yes.
So I was fortunate to be raised in a community where, so for example, in our language, as you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we don't have a word for cousin or uncle. And I tell people all the time, that is something which distances people, right? So thankfully, my mother had people to help support folks like you. So even when I was acting up, there still was a circle of people who embraced me and were like, this is Takura, this is him being him. And so I experienced at the very earliest stage of my life, although I didn't know it at the time, the presumption of innocence, right? Because if you think about it, and I say all the time that I meet the best version of the people who I represent, because whatever they've done that brings them to me is in the rearview mirror. So I was around people where I was encouraged to be myself, even though I wasn't always easy to deal with.
But Takura, it's very, very important point you mentioned. The thing is, it says a lot of our communities and how we raise children. We never thought there was any. Well, we just knew Takui is just naughty child. That's the furthest we could say. He was just naughty. Takui is everywhere. Nobody gave it a name or anything. So you never realized. Nobody ever realized, or we didn't look at it like you had. What would they call it? A challenge of any sort. It never was that. It was Tawanim Skanzwa. And that's where it ended. Exactly. Because, like you said, you would have been given a name of what you are and medicated. We just put up with you until the phase passed. and then you went, as you said, you came to the States and you were in the army. I mean, and here you are. What can I say? What can I say?
Yeah, no, but and again, something I tell folks all the time is, I'm going to borrow again from our language. Whenever somebody does something worth acknowledging, we say, Makoro Koto, that's congratulations. And the response is, they are all of ours. It's a recognition that nobody accomplishes anything. No man is an island. Nobody accomplishes anything worth.
It takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. That's what it is. No, it's not anyone who can take the responsibility, or it's because of you. That's how it turned out to be. I'm assuming you are thinking all of us who helped. Who helped.
Absolutely, yes. But in whether it was in the army, right, where if you look at the uniform, this is something probably my second day in basic training. We were told, okay, look down at your uniform, and when you look down, the first thing that you see is, so, whether you're in the Marines or the Army, I was in the Army. You see U.S. Army and then your surname. So always a reminder that it's not about you, the individual, it's about the mission, right? We are all working towards a common goal. And also, Takura Nyamfukudza, we are the type of people who, unfortunately, because of what we do, when someone walks through our doors, that person is going through easily the most stressful and scariest time in their life, but it also affects their loved ones. And everything that we do is focused on ensuring that, to the extent possible, because we don't make the decisions and we get the facts as we receive them, but the best interest of the people that we represent, and always with the Constitution, right? Always front and center. So,
well, but at what point did you decide you wanted to be an attorney? After you left the army, at what point, like you said, your sister's a dentist, and at what point did you then decide, no, this is where I'm going, this is where I feel I want to be?
So, as you know, mom is a nurse. She was a nurse before I drew my first breath, and sister being a dentist, I was strongly encouraged to go the medical route. But it took me almost no time to realize this wasn't for me. So self-advocacy. I went and spoke with the guidance counselor, and I said, you know what? I know that at the advanced stages, when this stuff gets really difficult, I will need to enjoy it, to put in the time and effort to excel. So in speaking with her, she said, okay, maybe political science or something like that would be a better fit. I did that. But when I got my bachelor's, I knew I didn't want to be a probation officer or police officer. So it was a process of elimination. I knew what I didn't want to do. And I'm actually thankful for that. It was not wasted time at all, because it let me know what I did not want to do. So law school was kind of process of elimination. Given what I had already done and was doing well and enjoying, that was the next logical thing to do. I knew I could be mentally challenged and still help people positively. Yeah.
Tell me some of the cases that you have handled, because I, as you said, when people walk into your office, they are just at the bottom of it. It's like, you know what, I'm dead. And you are there to just give them that little hope, and you take people to win. And I know you've done, you and your team. I've met them once when I came down to the States to visit, and amazing team. You that's your business, to assure these people and take on their cases and tell them that we're a winning team.
Yes.
Tell me some of the cases that you, and I know you've been winning a lot of them.
Yes, thankfully. Yeah. So there are a lot, and I mean, we don't have enough time here to go through all of them, but one that always comes to mind is, and he's on the National Registry of Exonerations. And the reason I think immediately of Lacino Hamilton is because he was falsely accused of all the crimes a person can be accused of murdering his mother. And he spent 26 years in prison. And after representing him for 6 years, I when I was in boarding school, and also when I was deployed and in the army, I sent and received letters, all of which I still have in my basement here. Because those letters, when you open it, it's not like an email. You can open that when we were out on mission at night, you're reading with the flashlight, just knowing that somebody took the time out to write a letter, right? Put a stamp on it and send it to you. That just put wind in my sails in ways that an email cannot. Anyhow, for the 6 years that we were representing Lacino, that is how we communicated. I wrote him letters. And he spent a lot of his time in solitary confinement. That is unnatural to spend even a day or two, but he actually spent years in solitary confinement. And often those letters, those were his only contact with the outside world. So anyhow, at the end of the day, after 6 years of representing him, we managed to get him out. And he was released during the height of the pandemic. So he was allowed only 2 people on the grounds of the Michigan Department of Corrections, and he chose my business partner, Mary, and me, right? And Mary hugged him first, and then I hugged him. And those were his first hugs in 26 years. Because as you can imagine, you're not going around hugging people in prison, right?
No, no, you're not.
Something you do. And that touch, which people so often take for granted. And, you know, when he got out, he was in his mid-40s, and nobody talks about someone who is that age as having potential for anything, right? So his life essentially was on hold. So when he got out, cars are talking, right? I taught him to send his first text message. Understand? Cars are backing up.
Did he even know how to do that?
No.
When he went in, did he even know there was a cell phone?
They did not exist yet. They did not exist. There was no such thing. So, and of course, you can imagine his friends and family, because for many years, people had decided that he had done this thing that he'd been convicted of. So for so many people, having to undo that, and wow, he actually didn't do it. But also, his life was on pause. Friends had gone on and had families of their own, and they developed relationships, and he just... I know from my deployments, you know, when I was just gone for a year, and so it took me a while to assimilate and become a civilian again. And I volunteered, right? I did that voluntarily, but he certainly did not volunteer for that. And I don't know that he will ever be the version of himself that he would have been or should be, given all the traumas that he experienced. But you know, we've also, at the trial level, thankfully, we've helped prevent somebody from going in so one case that comes to mind immediately, I won't say his name, but there's a person who I represented for many years, and in actually many different counties. In this case, because I have a trial in 2 weeks, I'm going before this judge. And it was early on in probably in his second year as a judge. Identity was a critical issue in this case, okay? And the gentleman I was representing had tattoos from his neck down the front of his body, his arms, back, sides, and everything. And he was my last witness. I told him to stand up, remove his shirt, and then we started describing all the tattoos that he had on his body, because this woman had said she'd seen something. She didn't know anybody, and in very great detail on the phone, describing people's boxes, haircuts, and everything. But the one thing she did not say is anything about tattoos. So this judge, every time I see him, he says, "I know you've got something up your sleeve for me." Yes, I do, Judge. So I've got something in this case coming up in 2 weeks, but every time I see him, he reminds me of that. But you know what? That's just me being me. And it's been said, the older you grow, the more like yourself you become. So it's just the young Takura just remixed. You know?
I guess so. I guess. But do you love your job? I just talking to you, each time I talk to you, I'm asking for other people to hear. Do you love your job?
Honestly, even for more money, there isn't anything different that I would do. And there's some people who, from the time they're, 4 or 5, I want to be an attorney. Well, that wasn't me. I'm thankful.
No.
It's a huge responsibility. People entrust you with their future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not easy, right? And it shouldn't be, given the weighty type of things that we deal with. And nobody wins every case. If they tell you they're lying, or they're only trying easy cases. But I think a great deal of it has to do with the people that I do the work with. And it's the only job in the Bill of Rights. And there are folks, there's a particular lady, every year on my birthday, without fail, she emails me and says, "Thank you for what you did." And she sends me photos of her son, and in different places, at graduations.
Mm-hmm.
Had it not been for what you did, he wouldn't be here with us. So again, these are unsolicited. I don't reach out to her and say, hey, guess what? It's my birthday today. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. And she started that
Well,
on her own. She started that on her
well,
own.
you create relationships. You create relationships, and that, to me, that's what makes life. You know, that's yeah,
Correct.
it's inspiring. And I also work with a lot of people, and some people ask me, where do you get all these people you bring on your inspired voice? Where do you even get them? But I mean, it's relationships, and you nurture them, and you grow them, and you know that's what happens.
Yes.
Now, you are in Lansing, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And I follow what you do, your page. I follow what you do.
Yes.
The most important, what I want you to talk to me about Turning Point, which I think is social responsibility of Chache and Nyamfukudza, giving back to the communities that we work with. And I've seen you doing all kinds of things with them. I would like to hear a little bit more about that, because it's very it's important.
Right.
Why is it important? I do remember reading a landmark United Nations landmark report on they were identifying the impact that anti-Black racism is in communities, and urging and communities to take responsibility. And I look at Turning Point, in Lansing. Talk
Yes.
about that, and put together what I'm talking about. Working with communities and doing the best you can for the communities that you're working. Talk about that.
So I can think back again. So unfortunately, a lot of the folks who we represent, right? Like I said, we don't win every case, and a lot of the, not always men, but I'll just say a lot of the people we represent. If you look at, so before you get sentenced on a felony case, right? A pre-sentence investigation report is prepared, and this talks about your background, your criminal history, and unfortunately, if you just redact the names, you just cover the names, a lot of these people, their backgrounds are almost identical, right? From a young age, you see, oh boy, okay, only one parent, perhaps was substances played a significant role in and out of jail or prison and so on. So if by the time they're 18, it's too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that when we start pouring into these young men and women at a young age, and they believe in themselves, I think that is one of the best things that we can do, not only for them, but for the community at large.
Yeah.
I was a member of the Davis Dunnings Bar Association many, many years ago, and I was at a Juneteenth event. A young man came up to me and he said, "Oh, what's this booth? What do you do here?" And we started talking, and he said, "Ask me, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm a student. I'm going to law school." And he said, "But you're Black." So I don't know what became of that young man. So clearly nobody in his life had ever told him that he could be an attorney, or he never met one. So I don't know what happened to that young man. I don't know what has become of him, but in that moment, I could see the wheels turning for these young men of Turning Point of Lansing, right, from the 6th to the 12th grade, holistic young men. My first encounter with them actually was at an event where they were the ushers. Okay, at this event, there were dignitaries there. I was like, these people are impressive. Fast forward a few years, I came and spoke with them and a group of their parents. So every month there's an event, and we focus on different things, right? Not just education, because there are people actually who don't know how to complete a scholarship application. And even when I was in law school, it became readily apparent that, look, there are some people who are third, fourth, fifth generation attorneys. I wasn't those folks. So my journey through law school was different. So whatever we can do, especially with, I don't want to turn this political, but we are in interesting times where if we don't do it for ourselves, because the powers that be are working, making consistent and concerted effort to get rid of things that would make the playing field more fair, more level. Where else can these young men go but look to folks like us? And we have a responsibility to give back.
I am truly impressed by that, because I mean, there are just so many poor outcomes, in these communities, particularly with people of color and young men of color. And like you say, they're more likely to fall, between the cracks, and unless somebody empowers them, somebody talks to them about the challenges. Sometimes they go through these challenges, or they go through this whole system without even realizing these are hurdles, and they won't help me bring the best of me, bring out the best of me. And so when they look at people like you said, I mean, it's powerful that a young man said, but you're Black, but you're going to law school. They probably have never seen anybody, and seeing someone who looks like them, and just imagining that they could.
Right. And I can tell you that I have been on many boards where I was the only one. I was speaking for all of us. So, when these young men find themselves in those situations, we want to ensure that they have the right education, but temperament also, right? That they can find themselves in those places. Because I've learned that sometimes, by virtue of just being in a particular place, people won't ask you certain questions, right? Because there's certain places where you don't end up by mistake. But we want to ensure that, like, financial, listen, just like, my first job was actually Babam Kurunjagu, you know who I'm talking about, right? So my first job was actually when I was 6 years old. He owned a gas station, and when I saw these stacks of money, I would see him waking up early in the morning and coming home late at night. And he says, look, this is a lot of money, and this is how you get nice things at the time, candy and biscuits and things. That's what mattered to me.
Very important.
And he said, exactly, but this is how you get it. And I was his bodyguard, but he was teaching me responsibility. And now fast forward to when I came here and I'm working at Burger King. I got my first pager. This was before cell phones, but budgeting, right? My mother, she told me to pick a couple of bills that I was responsible for. We were living under the same roof, so I was going to contribute. And that budgeting, learning how to balance a checkbook. I think nowadays, where money so often, right, you can use this and tap a machine, where a lot of times money, Zelle, Cash App, budgeting is something that these young folks don't do a lot. Money just moves through the air. And if you don't start saving and being responsible with money, even when you have a few dollars, $10, when you have 1,000 or 10,000 is not the time to start learning, because you start training yourself and building those good habits that will allow that money to grow. So budgeting is just a little bit of what we do, getting them into college, giving them opportunities for mentorship and so on. But every month we do a different program with these young men, and a lot of them have gone on and done fantastic things. So
do you teach them how to tie, how to do a tie and like a bow tie? Like, to you, it's a signature thing. I mean, no one ever sees Nyamfukudza without your bow tie.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Actually, and if you think about it, it's funny enough, but we have actually represented folks who, until they have to go to court next to us and they're going to trial, have never tied a tie. Right? Because if you've never held a formal job, you didn't have to go for an interview, right? It's not so surprising. So yes, we absolutely teach them.
On that point, do you know what? We actually been talking for 29 minutes, But I want to show a little picture. Talking about ties and learning to, you came a long way. There you were. In grade one.
Nicely done.
Courtney Salu in Greendale in Zimbabwe. That was you here with your little tie. Somebody told you how to do a tie. And there you are with your bow tie, now in attorney. And third, going further down, CNN, Takura Nyamfukudza PLC. Whoever could have thought of that? But c'est la vie, that's life. This is the life of Takura Nyamfukudza that I know. I had to put this together because I thought it was
nicely done. I did not see that coming.
Grade one, tie, bow tie, and Takura Nyamfukudza as an attorney. Nyamfukudza, this is amazing. And thank you for, it went so fast. It always goes so fast when we're talking about someone talking about their life and,
Yes.
The rise of Takura Nyamfukudza. That's all I can say. And it was wonderful talking to you. I don't know what else you have to say to other people out there, young men and young women out there, about a dream and how you can turn into reality. What do you have to say just to round up this thing?
Everything that you see around you is a thought manifested. Okay? Keep the company of folks who will encourage you and never doubt yourself. Okay? Again, everything you see around you is a thought manifested. But the dictionary is the only place where success comes before work. So your backbone, right? Not the wishbone, is how you will achieve success. So just put your mind to it and you can achieve anything.
Thank you so much, Nyamfukudza, and I appreciate your spending 30 minutes with me and talking about you. It's hard to talk about your life in 30 minutes. I mean, we're here all day, right? But for the purposes of this podcast, 30 minutes is enough to hear about us talking about you. And for those who are following you, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe to Inspired Voices. I think we've learned a lot, and these kind of stories, they inspire us, and we my podcast really is to share with other people, and hopefully that it will drive somebody to higher, bigger heights. And thank you so much. And I'll see you again next time when I bring another guest to talk about ordinary person talking about what they are doing and their successes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.